Hello, welcome to Sophie & Co. I'm Sophie Shevardnadze. The Autonomous Republic of Crimea on Ukraine's Black Sea coast has for centuries been populated by ethnic Russians. As the revolution unfolded in Kiev, the republic refused to pledge allegiance to the new government. To protect ethnic Russians, Moscow is considering the possibility of sending troops to the region. What will it take to peacefully settle the crisis? Well, today I'm joined by Russian Senator Andrey Klimov.
Ukraine is torn apart by revolution. As Western politicians cheered on Ukraine's Maidan, radical nationalist groups claimed power across the country. In Crimea, ethnic Russians are now asking for Moscow's protection. Where is Ukraine's legitimate government? What will it take to restore peace and unity? And what are the chances outside forces will have to step in?
And our guest today is Andrey Klimov, Russian senator, member of the Foreign Affairs Committee. It's really great to have you with us. So we're just going to start on from the latest news. Why did you guys approve the possibility of sending Russian troops?
First of all, because according to our constitution, this is our right to do. Only the Council of Federation can, so to say, give a permission to our president to send our troops out of our country or to move our troops inside this or that foreign state. And to give these rights to the president, he asked us, he addressed us, and it was our response to that address. So now we have everything according to our constitution, according to the Article 102 of the Constitution of the Russian Federation.
Right, but to explain to our viewers, what was the core point? Why did you all decide to actually approve this bill?
Our task is to protect our compatriots out of Russia and to protect our soldiers, our marines staying in Crimea. This is according to another law, which is the defense law of the Russian Federation, Article 10. This is the very situation of this law, according to this article. And certainly, to protect them, we have to have some flexibility to do that. And even if we cross a kind of red line somewhere in Crimea, it may be an outlaw case if we have no such kind of permission. Now we have such kind of permission, and we can protect our compatriots, our citizens of the Russian Federation, and our military troops inside Crimea.
But as of now, we're talking about permission, and I want to emphasize on the word permission, because the troops haven't been deployed yet.
Absolutely.
And even the approval of the parliament doesn't mean that troops will be deployed at all.
This is only a kind of demonstration of the instrument, how we can do it, and this is the possibility, the official possibility to realize that, to implement that instrument, but it is not the order for our troops there, of course not.
All right, but what we're seeing from the Western media is an outblown reaction saying that Russia is occupying Ukraine. Why do you think such an acute reaction to something that hasn't even happened yet?
Either they do not know the real things or they lie, and that's it.
What needs to happen for the Russian troops actually to be deployed in Crimea? Give me the scenario.
Well, I prefer not to speak about things which may be. I am a practical politician, so my task is to make a decision when we have the reality.
Right, but you have approved, and the Senate has approved and given the right for the Russian troops to be deployed, so you must have a scenario.
No, look, we have our commander-in-chief, Mr. President Putin, who can send such kind of orders to our forces directly. Parliamentarians, we have no such rights. So we know for sure that without our decision, it is not possible to protect in a proper way our military people and our civilians there. And that's it.
But I know you're being very diplomatic because this is your job, but you must have a certain picture in your head why you've approved it, in case of what? Exactly.
Well, if I am speaking about my personal point, of course, not like a senator or member of this Foreign Affairs Committee, but my personal opinion is such. We know that it is a real civil war now in Ukrainian territory. We know well that there are a lot of people, thousands and thousands of people with weapons, whom we do not know and who are not the part of the official military forces of Ukraine. and to protect our even missiles, what we have there in Crimea, our military ships, our military base. We have to be sure that we can really do that, even in case if they open fire. I'd like to remind you one scenario which happened exactly about 6 years ago in Caucasus. There our people, our soldiers, were in Skhinval, and they tried to protect their small base without heavy weapons under the killing fire. And we do not want to repeat that kind of scenario. We prefer to prepare better for that very negative scenario, of course, but we have to be prepared to protect our people there.
And now we're going live to Crimea to our correspondent Maria Finoshina, who will bring us up to date with the latest developments. Maria, tell us, how are the Crimeans reacting to the developments?
Well, what happened in Kiev and what many here in Ukraine see as an armed coup d'etat has caused a dramatic split among the population of this country. We see people divided into those who support the country's new authorities and those who don't recognize them as legitimate power and protest against them and demonstrate in all possible means that they don't want to be with them and they don't see their future with them. And this is particularly the case of the eastern and southern Ukraine and especially Crimea. This is a very special region. The majority of the population are ethnic Russians here, and what we see here is quite unanimous. We see thousands-strong crowds, thousands-strong demonstrations all across this region in all major cities. People take to the streets, officials and ordinary residents, men, women, entire families, to show Kiev that they don't want to be with them and they don't recognize them as legitimate power, as legitimate authorities of this country. For example, in the city of Sevastopol, in the port of Sevastopol, just 100 kilometers away from where we are now, local residents rejected Kiev-appointed mayor and later the head of police who was also assigned from the capital. And this is a common mood here.
Ukrainian soldiers are said to be leaving their positions and joining Crimean self-defense forces. Can you confirm that?
I have to admit that at this point, it's not very easy to say exactly what is going on among the Ukrainian military base here on the peninsula. You have to understand that this is a very sensitive issue and it's not easy to get an access to military bases here across the Crimea or talk to the Ukrainian military. But the country is divided, the population is divided, and this is apparently what's happening among the military as well. And this is almost exactly what we're hearing from local authorities. Today, Crimea's Prime Minister came to media and he said that some of the officers, some of the soldiers were leaving their arsenals and were giving up their weapons and were declaring that they no longer belong to the Ukrainian military forces and they quit the military forces. But others, and we understand that this is the majority of the military here, they made decision to side with Crimea's authorities. But we understand that the situation today is mostly and mainly controlled by so-called self-defense squads made up of locals in coordination with regional police. We see these people, they don't wear any specific uniform, they look quite civil, and they're patrolling streets of major cities here in the Crimea day and night. And not only strategic or governmental buildings, but just streets. So they don't want any panic, any violence to happen in their cities, and this is their main mission. And we're also hearing from local authorities here who are also worried about panic that could spread among the population, that they are calling on people to stay calm and to be calm. But actually we don't see much panic here, for example, in Crimea's capital, Simferopol, and we hope that it will stay this way.
All right, Maria, thank you very much. That was Maria Finoshina, our correspondent in Crimea. We're going to take a short break right now. We'll come back with Andrey Klimov to talk about the broader picture around Crimea. Stay with us. back with Andrey Klimov, Russian senator, talking about the situation around Crimea. So the Russian parliament's approval to actually deploy military forces in Ukraine states that troops may stay there until the situation in Ukraine is completely stabilized. What exactly needs to happen for the situation in Ukraine to be considered as stable?
Well, anyhow, it will be a decision of our president, because this is now his responsibility to say when it will finish. But I can say that there are some points anyhow. First of all, we have to understand well that we are speaking not with provisional government, but with something more constant than it. We have to know who is the real president of Ukraine, but not the guy who is sitting now in their parliament, because it is not according to their own constitution, not the nearest one, the last one, not the previous one. Then we have to see the streets free from any military people, even if they are from Maidan. I don't know from what other armies they can have. But better to say they have to go back to the declaration signed 21st of February, more or less, on the same conditions, when we will understand that the situation is really under control of the people of this country than under somebody else.
Tell me, please, does the decision to step in run contrary to the 1994 international agreement on the status of Ukraine, where Russia, the United Kingdom and the United States have agreed to guarantee Ukraine's territorial integrity?
We still guarantee them this territorial integrity. We are not speaking about something what is not under this agreement. We are speaking about possibility of people in Ukraine to solve their problems themselves without any pressure from abroad, without any pressure from the crowd of criminals, without any pressure from the streets, according to their own constitution. And that's it. And if people prefer to have federation or confederation, it is after them. If they prefer to give more rights to the autonomy in Crimea, this is their rights. We are not speaking about something else.
So there's no talk about secession? Would Russia not consider taking in Crimea as Russian territory?
On the official level, of course not. It is not possible at all.
Why not?
We respect the state, as a part of the European society, as a member of the Council of Europe, as a member of the United Nations, and we are speaking always about territorial integrity of this country. But, of course, the political structure of this country, the division of this country, the administrative reforms of this country, everything in hands of their people, but not just small group of politicians sitting somewhere in the square.
But just a few days ago, Russian parliament has also simplified the procedure of actually other territories to join Russian Federation territories. What was that all about?
No. Look, I am one of the authors of the law, which was adopted about 12 years ago by the State Duma, and there are some procedures how it may be theoretically. Not we are speaking about Ukrainian people, or not we are speaking about Belarus, generally speaking. And there are a lot of procedures how to do that. And I can say that we have no such conditions now. We are speaking about today and maybe the day after or months after. But now I cannot say that this is really a case. Moreover, I can tell you that the strategy of my country is not to have more territories, but to have integration in Eurasia based on principles when we respect each other, when each country has its own voice, when we have our decision only when we have a balance of interests. And this is the idea of the new Eurasia Economic Union. So this is our dream, so to say, if you like, but not to take part of one country and to make our greatest, biggest country in the world bigger than it is. It's a stupid idea indeed.
I want to get back to Crimea. Most of the people in Crimea speak Russian, so does people in other regions in Ukraine. But then we have the post-Yanukovych parliament, the new parliament. First decision that they're taking is actually to strip Russia of the Russian language of the regional status. Why do you think that happened? Why was that the first decision that the parliament took?
Maybe they opened their real face. These people opened their real face. in 21st century, I cannot imagine any serious politicians in the world who would like to start with such kind of actions. It was not a mistake. It was really demonstration of the main aims of the people sitting now in the parliament and who named themselves as the Parliament of Ukraine. I cannot say that these people were ready to look through all possible scenario which may happen after the decision. And that is why next day or maybe about a week after, even in Lvov, people prefer to speak Russian. Usually they prefer to speak their own language there. But after this strange, very provocative decision, they open the Pandora box. They open the Pandora box and they press people from their houses to the streets, not just in Crimea, but in all eastern parts of this country.
Mm-hmm. Well, the members of the Nationalist Svoboda movement, party, actually not movement, have threatened to obtain nuclear weapons if Russia doesn't back down. Do you take this threat seriously?
Well, they have a lot of crazy people there, so it seems to me if we'd like to comment...
But does the fact that they're crazy make this threat less serious?
Well, unfortunately, crazy people may really have some power, but I believe that when we are speaking about nuclear weapons, even our Western colleagues will be not so active as they were during the previous events on Maidan Square.
What exactly do you mean? Can you precise?
I mean that the nuclear question is too serious, and if anybody like to play games with such kind of perspectives, if we are speaking about, well, first of all, let's mind that they have no nuclear weapons, but they have nuclear power stations.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We're 4 nuclear stations in Ukraine.
Yes, I know what you're speaking about. I can tell you that not only these power stations very dangerous. They have a lot of chemicals. They have a lot of dangerous plants, and we have to be sure that near our borders, in our neighbor state, all of these dangerous places protected in a proper way.
Russia's ambassador to the United Nations, Vitaly Churkin, has called on all sides to help curb the activity of radical forces operating in Ukraine. Why do you think that we're not seeing any response on this particular problem from the West?
Well, I can tell you that we started in December with our proposals to open negotiations between 3 sides in triangle between Moscow, Brussels, and Kiev. Unfortunately, our partners in Europe prefer to do it in a wrong way, so to speak, with Kiev separately and with Moscow separately. Now we again offer them this kind of negotiations. We'd like to have a kind of round table, including Western politicians, including Western decision makers. And this is, it seems to me, the only way out and the only peaceful way out.
Mm-hmm. President Obama, as of now, has threatened unspecified costs if Russia enters Crimea. What might those costs be? What do you think?
Well, first of all, it seems to me that Mr. Obama must look at himself, and it seems to me that his colleagues in Washington and in the European Union were too provocative during all the previous days, weeks, and even months. And it seems to me that with their support, we receive this crisis. So they have to pay these costs. And this is not just a computer game, you see. We are speaking about very serious things which happen not somewhere, I don't know, 5,000 miles from Washington, but we are speaking about things which is really near our house. And we know well what's happened there, and we are ready to react because this is not just our neighbors, this is our brothers. And certainly to help our brothers, if you like, to help our own people to go out of this very dangerous situation, we'd like to do everything in the best way, in a proper way. But, well, Again, it seems to me that Mr. Obama, he and his colleagues, they are responsible for this hot state of this crisis.
But the international community is calling on all sides to engage in dialogue. Who should Russia speak to? The new Ukrainian government?
Well, I'm not sure that this provisional government is really has any power, any serious power now. But anyhow, we need somebody with whom we can speak there. So we need some time, and maybe with the help of our European partners and our partners from Washington or from on the platform of the United Nations, just to find the real way out, because we must have this solution. We must have it for the benefit of the peace on the world, on the globe. And I hope that this too provocative activity of Western politicians will over. This is the way out. We do not want to receive next stage of this civil war. We like to close this Pandora box.
The Ukraine parliament is actually preparing to sign an association agreement with the EU one more time. You work closely with the EU. Why do you think EU needs right now a politically unstable, divided country that's on the verge of bankruptcy?
Well, look, it seems to me that this is a decision which is based not on economical situation, but on some political ambitions of Western politicians. But it's a very serious remark. All of them, I mean, Mr. Barroso, Mr. Rampey, the European Parliament, will be out of their offices in a few months. In May, it will be elections to the new Parliament, and they have to have new leaders of this European Union. So we prefer to speak with new, maybe, politicians about some strategic things. But anyhow, as my point, the European Union, it hasn't enough money for that. It hasn't enough support even inside the European Union from their member state to realize all these, so to say, programs which they promised to poor Ukrainian side.
Just really quickly, so you think that the new people in the EU government will be against Ukraine's accession to the EU?
Well, anyhow, I'm very sure about that. It is not possible to see Ukraine inside the European Union because this is out of main interests of the member states of this union. This is not because of position of Moscow. They never accept them as an equal member state inside the European Union.
Senator Klimov, thank you very much for this interview. This was Russian Senator Andrey Klimov from the Foreign Affairs Committee of the Russia's Upper House of Parliament. We're talking about the situation in Crimea, what may happen, what's going on right now. That's it for this edition of Sophie & Co. Stay with us for the next time.